Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is my last video for the evening. I've been putting in a lot of work tonight. If I had the energy, I would even do one more, but I got to wrap it up. I may do one in the morning, depending on if I have time. I really want to talk about Nick Cannon and a recent interview he did with a rabbi. So look out for that. I may do that tomorrow. But yeah, I wanted to talk about VladTV. I've been recently checking out a couple of interviews that VladTV has done. And I just want to, I'm going to play the audio for a couple of these short clips. And, the whole point of this video right here, to just sum it up front, is that VladTV is an instigator. He's a troublemaker, and he actually gets people locked up, and he starts beef between people. And I think that that's his intention. And my question is, why do people give this white Jewish guy such a high status type of position in our culture? Like, how do we allow a vulture like this to infiltrate Black culture, exploit Black culture, get rich off of Black culture, and cause all this trouble among Black people? I just can't understand it. Like, I don't understand why we are giving him such a platform. I don't understand why all these prominent Black people regularly appear on his program. There are plenty of other YouTubers out here that do content about celebrities. Many of them have a large audience, not as large as VladTV, but if more Black celebrities would support those platforms, then they would be big too. They would have the same size audience as a VladTV. I'm not understanding why people constantly go to this guy and, just tell him everything. Some of these people be snitching on themselves. And it's like, there have been articles online that suggest that this guy basically works with the police and helps get people arrested. You had this one rap artist get on his program and start talking too much. And then this guy gets set up. The feds were listening, or the state prosecutor or law enforcement was listening, and they used that information from his interview to lock this guy up. And I'm going to share that article with you a little bit later before I close out. But you got people getting locked up. You got this guy instigating beef between people. The most recent example of that would be this situation between D.L. Hughley and Professor Griff from Public Enemy. They're going at it because of an interview that D.L. Hughley did on VladTV. And I'm going to play some excerpts from that interview. And then you have the situation with Akon. You have VladTV egging this brother on, getting this brother caught up into controversy. And now everybody is at Akon's throat because of the things that he said on VladTV about African Americans and slavery and stuff. It's like this man basically goaded the conversation in such a way that it gets him a lot of views and a lot of people to tune in to his channel and stuff like that. But it has collateral damage. Now you got Akon, under attack by the Black community, and rightfully so. But you have this guy instigating the situation. And you have other situations where this guy has people on his program encouraging violence against other people. Like, I recall that the brother Hassan Campbell posted a video where he was talking about VladTV getting this guy a little Bootsy to talk about, basically encouraging a gang in New York to kill 6ix9ine, what's his name? Tekashi 6ix9ine. So it's like VladTV is a troublemaker. He's like in the midst of the Black community, causing chaos among the Black community, got Black people fighting each other. And one of the biggest examples of such a confrontation that was sparked in part because of his program, you had that confrontation between Tommy Sotomayor and what's his name, Tariq Nasheed, where, you know, Tommy Sotomayor was doing this interview with VladTV, and Tariq Nasheed just happened to walk up on the set and confront Tommy Sotomayor doing that particular broadcast. And you can't tell me that that's some kind of accident or coincidence. Like, this man promotes this kind of conflict. He promotes the division in the Black community. And again, my question is, like, why are we allowing this man all up in our midst? Like, why are we allowing this man to be an authority on Black culture and hip hop? Like, you know, this guy makes all these derogatory comments about hip hop artists, some of our greatest hip hop artists, and he downplays them as if he is an authority on what is real hip hop. Like, for instance, like, he'll say disrespectful things about a legend like Nas, you know, disrespecting Nas, disrespecting somebody like a Black Thought from the Roots, like, you know, saying like, oh, he's not a good MC. He's not all that. He's not in my top, you know, like disrespecting top tier MCs that represent real hip hop. Meanwhile, he has like all these little candy, whack little mumble artists that nobody, you know, that most people that are into hip hop never even heard of. So it's like he is undermining, you know, this hip hop culture. And it's just a shame that we allow vultures like this amongst us, man. That we allow snakes like this amongst us. Literally like the snake that, you know, you hear about in the stories of the Garden of Eden. Like, here you are in a righteous environment, and you had this snake slithering into that environment, causing all kinds of chaos and confusion. And that's what he's done. There are examples after example of him starting beef between people, Black people. And I just find it to be sickening. I find it's disgusting, and I don't understand why Black people continue to use him as a platform or go onto his platform and help hype up his platform, get him all these views and all these subscribers and stuff like that. I don't get it. I don't get why somebody that with knowledge of self, like you know, Lord Jamar, is on Vlad TV. I'm glad that Lord Jamar, you know, got hip to the game and decided to create his own podcast and draw people over to his own channel and stuff like that. You know, I'm glad that he made that move. But here you are, you know, somebody that is supposed to have knowledge of self, you know, somebody that's teaching all this stuff about the white man's the devil and stuff like that. But you going on this man's platform regularly, boosting up his platform. He has you talking bad against, you know, Black people and other, you know, like egging you on with these questions designed to incite conflict and controversy and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is go through a couple of these interviews real quick, and I may not be able to get to your comments. You know, I want to thank people for tuning in to to this live stream. I may not be able to get your comments, but I will check them out. And then, yeah, that's a great point, Def Rocker. I mean, he interviews porn stars. He interviews like people that really shouldn't be highlighted and celebrated, but he interviews these people and helps boost their profile and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of these people are like porn stars and gangsters. And another thing that I have a problem with is his glorification. Like, it seems like he has some kind of sick fascination with criminal lifestyles, and he thinks that there's something cool about having these people talk about their criminal backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. It's like he's fascinated by this. Just like, you know, somebody visiting the zoo, like they're fascinated by how the animals interact. And that's how he comes across when he interviews these people. And it just sickens me. So what I want to do is just play this quick audio from his interview with D.L. Hughley. And again, this is fair use. I'm commenting on what he's talking about. You know, so I'm going to be responding to some of the things that he's saying and some of the provocative questions that he puts out here for this interview. Also, what I'll do is I'm going to share, go over that Akon interview where he says the things about Africa. As you all know, I did a prior video on that. But what I want to do is just walk through this interview. And, you know, instead of just focusing on the things that Akon said wrong or whatever, I'm going to focus on VladTV and how he egged him on to make those comments to stir up controversy and stuff like that. So let's start with DL Hughley's interview. And if you can't hear, just let me know. Just throw up a 7. I'm just going to test it out. Just throw up a 7 if you can hear.
Well, you mentioned Nick Cannon. And this is a weird one for me because Nick is actually.
So can you all hear that? Were you able to hear that audio? You can throw up a 7 if you were able to hear it. Okay, I see that you can hear it. So I'm going to take it back and play it.
Well, you mentioned Nick Cannon. And this is a weird one for me because Nick is actually my friend.
Yeah,
and who's been on my show tons of times. Me and him, he's helped me through some personal issues in my life. I helped him through some personal issues. We've talked probably on the phone as much as we talked on camera.
Sure.
And then he did that interview with Professor Griff. And me and him haven't talked. We were supposed to talk that day, and we couldn't connect.
He's too busy at synagogue to talk to you right now.
Too busy.
Yeah, so my first thing is this. Like, why is he asking DL Hughley about Nick Cannon? Like, that's none of his. I mean, that has nothing to do with DL Hughley. I mean, it seems like he would be talking to him about his own career, about what his new projects are. But instead, he wants to ask him about Nick Cannon, his opinions on Nick Cannon, and he's going to get into Professor Griff as well. It's like this line of questioning, all it does is promote division. It's going to have him saying something that ends up getting him into some controversy, not only with Nick Cannon, but with Professor Griff.
So I'm not really going to say my feelings about him because me and him haven't talked yet.
Sure.
But when you first saw that interview, what did you think?
When I first saw the interview, I was like, what the fuck is he doing talking to Professor Griff? That interview could have never gone any other way than it did. And the fact that you didn't understand that was good. If you get kicked out of Public Enemy because you're anti-Semitic,
too extreme,
probably you shouldn't do it.
Right?
Yeah, so I want to respond to that. So you got him, again, like asking him this question about Nick Cannon, which it has nothing to do with DL Hughley, but he asked him about this. So DL Hughley goes on to talk about Professor Griff and all that kind of stuff. Like he's basically saying you shouldn't have had Professor Griff on the program, and because of that, you ended up in this situation. And I just want to say this in response to that. Number one, the controversy wasn't over anything that Professor Griff said. None of the articles had anything to do with what Professor Griff had to say. It was about the statements that Nick Cannon made. It had nothing to do with Professor Griff. And, his suggestion that Professor Griff is to blame for this whole thing is ridiculous. Nick Cannon is responsible for his own statements. And, the idea that you're going to throw Professor Griff under the bus for this, it's just ridiculous, man. And it's just, it's just a shame that you had this guy, VladTV, ask these questions that would provoke this type of a response. So I'm going to continue playing.
I knew Professor Griff before. Yeah. And I've actually asked him about the anti-Semitic comments. He goes, look, this was part of a bigger interview. This was just a thing. This was my mind state back then.
And that would have been, but
it wasn't like he didn't, really, it was Nick talking more than Griff.
Right.
Nick was pretty much holding the torch in that conversation.
Right. And I didn't understand. Like, if you have somebody like that on, you already know that it's going to have a certain bent to it. So you have to be prepared to challenge some of the things he says. But nothing, there was zero to be gained from it. And Nick really has to understand this. Nick is the host, before America's Got Talent and The Masked Singer. Nick is accepted in the general market.
Mm-hmm.
He was on CBS radio. You can't get more general market for a black. There are very few black people that can do what he does. You got to decide if that's what you want. You can't be the host of The Masked Singer and these general market shows and then have Professor Griff on and think that audience isn't going to have a reaction.
Yeah. Well, I think with Nick, I think he struggles with, his success on the commercial side of things.
And he wants it edgy.
Versus being remembered as an icon to the Black struggle.
Sure. And I get it.
Yeah, and I just want to say this, like, before I continue on, like, I have a problem with, this guy. I have a problem with Black people going to white venues to bash other Black people. Like, even if I disagree, strongly with a Professor Griff, or I had certain kind of views about him or something like that, there's no way in hell you would get me to be on some white man's platform bashing my brother. I would rather, have a conversation with them instead of getting on some worldwide platform, on this white man's platform to talk bad about my brother. And it's just a shame that this would happen. It's a shame that you had this guy, D.L. Hughley, who speaks up about all kinds of issues dealing with race. But when it comes to this, he's throwing his brother under the bus. And it's going to get worse, before we conclude. It's only a couple of more minutes to this. I'm going to play it.
And I get it. But let me tell you something. You can't be General Market and then wear a turban and look like the Swami from Big. You can't do that.
Right.
You can't be General Market. That is your bread and butter, literally. Like talk shows, radio shows.
Yeah.
You can't walk around, and I think that I've noticed that some people resent the things they don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel that Nick wants to be like a Harry Belafonte. Someone who had a great deal of commercial success, but also spoke out against the struggle. But it's a line between those two. And listen, he came on VladTV and talked a lot of shit. Like he said a lot of edgy things.
Right.
But not quite as edgy as what he did.
Well, because look at the person
Griff.
he was talking to.
Right. He's talking to me.
Yeah.
A white Jewish guy.
Right. So it didn't look like it was insidious. It looked like, listen, and he put it back out. The interview was a year ago.
That interview was a year ago?
It was a year ago. It wasn't me. And he put it back out.
Right.
So
people always blame me about the stuff I put out, but Nick put that out himself.
Right.
On his own YouTube channel, with his own editing,
podcast,
his own everything.
He controlled the whole narrative. He could have said, we don't want this out. He could have not.
Of course.
And let's be clear.
Of course.
The only there is no other media outlet where a guy like Professor Griff, and I love Public Enemy, but what other outlet could he be on besides the podcast?
Yeah. Professor Griff has his own.
That's it.
Little following. I'm not going to say little, but he has his own committed following, but it's not a mainstream following.
And it ain't worth the steak ain't worth the sizzle, man. It ain't.
Yeah, so he's on a white man's platform, dissing his brother, Professor Griff, talking about how he would only be on a podcast, talking about the steak is not worth the sizzle and all that kind of stuff. Very disrespectful comments. And he's making these comments on this white man's program again, this white Jewish guy's program. And I just find that to be despicable. It's like, I don't understand why Black people go to this man's forum to bash other Black people. And, this is not the only case of this. You have him, instigating these beefs between these different rappers, had him asking them questions about this one and that one, just further fanning flames of conflict between people. Now, because of this particular interview, of course, Professor Griff went hard. Of course, Professor Griff is calling D.L. Hughley all kinds of coons and all that kind of stuff. And I feel him on that. I get him on that. But it's just a shame that here you got a guy, D.L. Hughley, that speaks out on these issues, all the, race issues and all that kind of stuff, stands up for our people in some cases and all that kind of stuff. And now he's in conflict with another Black man based on some statements that he made on this white man's program. And, I just think that people need to be leery about giving this man, their time by doing these interviews with this guy. I don't know why so many people are turning to this guy. And I don't understand like why we don't have a similar platform in Black YouTube space. Like you have some space, you know, at least that I'm aware of. Like maybe I'm not aware of another platform that has this many Black celebrities on it, interviewing with the host and all that kind of stuff, at least here on YouTube. And it's just a shame that this white guy is the one that's providing this kind of platform, instigating all this conflict. But let's go to this other interview. I want to play this other interview of him with Akon and just illustrate how this guy is like pushing things along, like encouraging divisive dialogue between, you know, Akon and the Black American community. So let me play this audio.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. How do Senegalese really feel about slavery and what happened? Because, you know, there were a lot of very foul people involved in the slave trade. There was, of course, Europeans, you know, Jews and whites were involved, but, you know, Africans were involved in it as well. They were selling off their enemies, you know, the enemy tribes and making their money and so forth.
So, I mean, he starts on, like, he knows about this whole ADOS thing going on, where you already have some tensions between Black Americans and Black immigrants, you know, people throughout the diaspora. And it seems like that's what this question was designed to do, is invoke that kind of, you know, dialogue to further along this particular conflict. You can't tell me that this guy, VladTV, is not aware of this ADOS conversation that's going on online. And I think that all he's doing is adding fuel to that particular fire with this interview. Another thing that he's doing with this line of questioning is downplaying the white man's role in slavery by suggesting that, hey, all these people were involved, like so many people were at fault, and Africans were at fault too, and all this and that. You know, trying to make it seem like the African is on a level playing field in terms of the culpability of the slave trade, when it was primarily that damn white man that ran the slave trade, enslaved our people. And our African brothers and sisters, they didn't know, like as another YouTuber was pointing out on Fly Nubian Queen, you know, our African brothers and sisters didn't know what they were putting these, you know, these other Africans through when they, you know, traded them to the slave master, you know, to the white man and stuff like that. They didn't know nothing about the extent of the oppression that our people, that our ancestors would face. They had no clue at all. You know, slavery in the United States was like one of the worst forms of oppression ever invented in human history. Here you had a people completely stripped from their motherland, stripped of their language, their culture, their religions, everything, in the words of, you know, the brother Khalid Muhammad, stripped of everything that made them who they were. Beaten, raped, castrated, killed. Millions died during the Middle Passage. Our ancestors, you know, our ancestors went through the worst form of suffering that can be experienced. And, you know, those Africans that participated in the slave trade, they had no idea what they were participating in. They had no idea of the extent of the oppression, but yet and still you got this white Jewish guy trying to make it seem like all these people were equally culpable or equally responsible for slavery. So let's continue on with this interview.
Like, how was slavery really looked at out there?
Well, in Senegal, we've kind of overcome the thought of slavery. We don't even think about it. The only time we think about it, honestly, is when we're doing tours at Good Island. You know, outside of that, people have lived and moved and way beyond the slavery concept and idea and mind state.
Right, because...
Yo, so you see there, like where, you know, VladTV asked a question, you know, about Africans, you know, Africans on the continent and how they experience, what they think about slavery. And then when the guy says, you know, when Akon says, well, hey, we don't even think about it at all. And, you know, it's just, and he said the only time we think about it is when we do those tours of Gory Island and stuff like that. I mean, they wouldn't think about it to the same extent that African Americans would, because they weren't enslaved. Like the people that lived and you know, they were subjected to colonialism, but they weren't enslaved by the white man. So of course they're not thinking about, you know, as you know, they're not going to think about it every single day like the African American would. Their concept is going to be different. But it's like by, you know, instigating this conversation, this man is further dividing, you know, African Americans from our African brothers and sisters, because a lot of people will use this as an example of how Africans don't care nothing about African Americans and stuff like that. So let's continue on with this.
In Senegal, you actually know your history. You can
Right.
trace your family back 100 generations,
Yep.
whatever else. You still have your names,
Right.
your real names. You're
Right.
not named Johnson,
Right,
or
and Jackson.
and Washington,
Luther.
and all the other slave owners that were
Right.
the presidents who had slaves during that time,
Right.
Jefferson,
You know.
and so forth. Yeah, but you guys actually have your history, and that was the whole thing of walking around Senegal.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, they're joking. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's like they're joking about the fact that we would stripped of our original names and our culture and stuff like that. There's nothing funny about that. And the fact that you got this guy, you know, encouraging this dialogue, like encouraging this type of conversation. You know, you got Akon laughing, and you got the host trying to cover up his laugh. You know, you could tell he got a big smile on his face. It's like this guy conveniently hides behind the camera, just like a snake hiding in the bushes, while he has black people up front, and he's just like orchestrating the whole thing. So now, because of this, you got this guy, you know, the African American community hating this guy and, you know, attacking him. And I feel it. I understand why, you know, as I discussed in my video, I understand why we have this, you know, this attitude towards him, because what he said was out of pocket and out of line and out of order. But we got to look at who initiated this conversation and how they, you know, helped direct the conversation.
Felt comfortable,
Right.
and with no type of disease. You
Right.
know, I mean,
I think it's also the art of just letting the past go
Yeah.
and moving towards the future. And I think in the U.S., they have this stigma of just not letting go of the past and blaming the past on every mishap or, you know, disappointment. And I think as long as you hold on to that past, it's just a lot of weight that you carry with you everywhere you go. And it's hard to move forward and move fast. You got to, you know, weight on your back.
Right.
You just got to let it go.
there's also been no reparations, and there's been, you know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, man, like, it's not like America is going to take the initiative to do it. I mean, otherwise they would have did it already. You know, Indians got reparations, the Jewish got reparations for Holocaust, and it wasn't even done in America. You know what I'm saying? So,
Italians got reparations.
Italians got reparations.
Germany.
Yeah, so you all get the idea. You know, I just wanted to highlight, you know, how this guy just manipulates things and promotes conflict and instigates conflict and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, before I go, I just want to share this one article with you all about this rap artist ended up getting arrested after doing this VladTV interview. Just bear with me a second. And there's this one article that talks about this judge. Yeah, I'm going to share this real quick. So this is one, there's this article right here that claims that the judge thanked VladTV for helping convict this rap artist, AR-Ab. So he got like a 20-year sentence for running a drug empire. And it says that the judge gave a big thank you to VladTV in this interview, which helped them build their case against AR-Ab. And I'm going to show one other article. Yeah, so this is another article. You know, it mentioned some other cases and stuff. When I get a chance, I'll post some of these articles in the description box. Let me stop sharing my screen. But yeah, people get locked up after going on Vlad TV and just blabbing, talking too much and snitching on themselves and, you know, talking about criminal activities. And, you know, the authorities be listening to this stuff, man. They be tuning into that stuff. And then they gather evidence and they conduct an investigation. And people like AR Ab end up getting locked up. You have people, and then as I was listening to the rest of Akon's interview with Vlad TV, he was talking about like how he participated in all these crimes, you know, this drug dealing and a car theft ring and all that kind of stuff. And he was talking about how he laundered money and stuff like that in different enterprises and stuff like that, and how he used some of that money. And, you know, he used music studios to launder money. And as I was listening to that, you know, I know that he was convicted for some of the charges. And I'm wondering if, because of that interview that Akon did, if the feds are going to investigate him even further to see if there's any connection between his music business and his past criminal lifestyle that he was engaged in. Because he admitted on this program that he used music studios to clean his money, his dirty money, from robbing and, you know, stealing all these cars and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if they're going to try to use this information from this interview to set him up for something else. I'm not sure, like, of all the charges he was convicted of and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that includes every single thing that he was talking about. But it's like, why are you on somebody's program talking about criminal activity that you engaged in? Like, why would you even do that? Why would you lay out how you committed certain crimes, how much money you made and all that kind of stuff? These people just talk too much. You know, talking about all that stuff. Not only is it, you know, potentially exposing this guy to possible future charges, it's also sending a bad message to young people. It like gives them ideas to engage in criminal activity so they can make it like a Akon or whatever. And, you know, he often has these people with these I mean, and Akon is doing great things now, but I'm just saying, like, why would you have somebody on your program explaining how they engaged in all this criminal activity, you know, and basically making it seem as if you can be a criminal too, and you can have all this success and become legitimate after engaging in all this criminal activity. It indirectly encourages people to participate in criminal activity. And the guy Akon was going through all the details of how he committed these crimes. And he, you know, he had a disclaimer about, oh, the feds are all over this now, so you probably can't do it like that anymore. But he was literally walking people through how they can steal cars from people. And this is the content that Vlad TV thinks is acceptable to put out here. When you got kids listening to that, you know, kids that may be like, oh, yeah, we could do that too, or something like that. And, you know, one of my biggest fears about this interview is that, you know, maybe they could use some of this stuff to lock him up now, and he'll be singing that locked up song again for real life. Yeah, but anyway, man, those are just a couple of thoughts on my mind about, you know, this Vlad TV. Because I think that so often what happens when Vlad TV, you know, does these interviews, we focus on the people in conflict instead of looking at what role did this guy Vlad TV play in this. Here he is asking people about Nick Cannon, you know, sparking some controversy around that. Like when Nick Cannon's plight has nothing to do with them. You know, he regularly asks people about Tekashi 6ix9ine and his snitching and stuff like that. It's like almost like he wants somebody to kill Tekashi 6ix9ine. And I don't have no love for rats and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, it's just irresponsible and reckless for you to constantly be asking people about Tekashi 6ix9ine, especially people that are involved in that kind of lifestyle, like Little Bootsy and all that kind of stuff, where he's basically encouraging people, the gang in New York to take Tekashi 6ix9ine out. So yeah, man, those are my thoughts. Tell me what y'all think about VladTV and these interviews that he does. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great night.